Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, and welcome to the Master Motivation. It's Monday, and I'm super excited to welcome our guest, Mr. Dan Burchfield. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you for inviting me on this. It's an honor to be here. And I wish I would have thought of bringing in talking to people that have motivated me throughout my life. It would have been cool.
Yeah, well, it's never too late, and who knows, maybe we'll see a Dan Burchfield show come out of this. So,
True,
let
true.
me remind all the viewers, everybody that's watching now, everybody that will watch later, the purpose of the video. The purpose of the video is that in 2020, we had a major pandemic and a lot of depression and people feeling kind of dark, lonely, and lacking that motivation. So I said to myself, what could I do that would be fun and exciting, and at the same time recognize all the people that have motivated and inspired me in my life. And I'll be honest, Mr. Birchfield, we don't have a long standing relationship. My kids have had experience with you at the school, but what really hit me was that in December of 2020, I took on a project called 75 Hard. And without going into all the details, one of the requirements was to read a book. And I had to read at least 10 pages a day. Well, when I decided to do that program, the first book that I said I was going to read was your book, My Journey with Joel. I had never read it before. I had heard the story. I knew about you, but I felt like after I read that book, I had to talk with you. I had to hear more of that story, and I was truly inspired with that. And as things continued to progress, I've watched the things that you've done. I see what you do with the Joel Burchfield Memorial Fund. Just amazing, amazing things. And you got a great reputation with the kids at the school. So, so I would love to just get to know you a little bit more through this interview. And again, those of you that are watching, feel free if you have any questions that you want to ask Mr. Birchfield. I know that you might have some of your students on there, some of your colleagues may be watching. They may have some questions. So we'll see how that goes. But if you could you start from maybe your childhood and just kind of tell everybody who you are, how you grew up, and we'll get into the story a bit more.
Okay. Well, I guess if you ever watched the movie The Sandlot, that was kind of like me growing up. I grew up in Torrance, California. My dad, when I was like 8 years old, and my family moved to Torrance, and we had this giant front yard. And all the kids would come over and play baseball, football in my giant front. We had vacant lots on either side, and we had a giant front yard, and it was just awesome to grow up there. And like I said, it was like the Sandlot. We play other kids. We actually had a field in the side that we played baseball on. So growing up, I just loved baseball. I also was pretty good at theater too. So when I was in 7th and 8th grade, I tried out for the play and was the lead in the play. But then when I got to high school, I said, I want to play baseball. So I got into high school, and I still had my drama classes. And, I was actually I didn't really start to grow until I got out of high school. So I was kind of like 5'5" when I was a senior in high school. But in those days, I graduated in 1973. In those days, you either played sports or, you did theater or you did band. You didn't do both. I mean, some did, but not a lot. So actually, I had the lead in the play, and I was doing baseball at the same time. And I did the lead, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and also was on the baseball team. So I graduated in high school, and I go into college, and I knew I wanted to get my degree. I didn't know what I really wanted to get into, but I knew I was pretty good in theater. My baseball career kind of like ended. Well, okay, I was like scrawny, 5'5". I actually grew 6 inches when I got out of high school, but it was a little too late for the baseball career. So I said, okay, I was good in theater, and that's what I want to do. So I went to college. It took me I was on my own. It took me like 7 years to get my degree. And in 1980, I got my degree in theater arts with a minor in history, because I had a history teacher who was really good and really got me interested into history. So I got married actually in 1979. And so when I got my theater arts degree, I was kind of like, yeah, I took acting lessons. I actually got paid for one thing. We did like a company. It was like a company that actually hired us to do a spy thing. So you go in each room and we interact these scenes, and then they try to figure out who the murderer was. So I got paid for that, and I've done a lot of local theater up till then. But at the end, I worked part-time as a plumber, and my father-in-law owned his own plumbing business. And he says, all right, well, my daughter's going to have she's going to have somebody that's going to earn a living, and you're an actor. We don't know about that. So I worked as a part-time as a plumber, and the Waite Brothers Plumbing was the name of the company. And I lived in Torrance, and actually it was in Agora. And we used to drive to Agora for 6 years. I drove from Torrance with my father-in-law out to Agora. And so when I got married, I said, okay, we saved our money. We got to buy a house. We looked in Torrance, but it was really expensive. And I did a lot of plumbing work for this one real estate agent. She said, well, there's a small place in Moorpark. I said, okay. So we looked at it, and I had to talk my wife into going there because, it's from Torrance to Moorpark, is out in the middle of nowhere. It was before the 23 connected with the 118, and we'd go, and then you just stop. And so anyway, we liked the house, and so I talked her into it, and we moved to Moorpark. My son Joel was born in 1984, so we moved here in 1986, and then my other son Ryan was born in 1988. And that's what really got me into Moorpark. So I was doing plumbing and worked in Agora, Westlake, Thousand Oaks area, and Newbury Park area, and loved Moorpark. Even though I had a lot of friends in Torrance, I actually was crazy enough I was in a softball league. Would on Friday nights drive down to Torrance back and forth, and drive back. So that's was kind of like crazy I was. But anyway, when my son Joel was 5 years old and he wanted to get into t-ball, I said, no, I'm going to let him have his own experience. I don't want to, because I was kind of intense. I don't want to get involved. So I did. And I sat, watched him in t-ball, and it was awesome. Well, the next year I get a call, and I says, Mr. Burchfield, we heard you want to coach in Little League. And I went, no. Well, my wife put my name in the hat. That kind of just changed my life course right there. So I went in t-ball, and a good friend that was coaching Joel in t-ball before that, we got together and coached in t-ball, and we coached Joel at the few years going into it, and loved it. Made great friends. Moorpark Little League was just awesome back then, and it was. Well, we'll get into the Little League thing later, but it was that's what really got me involved in coaching. I was always really good at motivating people, inspiring people, but doing t-ball and farm back then and keeping kids, that was another story.
Totally different. Well, before we get into that, because there's definitely a lot of talk about Little League and baseball, and we'll talk about Joel and Ryan and your wife as well. But let's back up a little bit more, just because I think those that know you kind of know some of those basics, the nuts and bolts of your beginnings. But go back a little bit more about your childhood. What were your parents like, and how did they inspire you, motivate you? How did they steer you into, you becoming a man and then eventually becoming a plumber? So, talk a little bit more about that before we move on.
Okay. Well, my mom and dad instilled in me a work ethic very young. My dad owned his own carpet company, and we would clean carpets. My dad would lay carpets, and is in Torrance, and he'd been there real long. In fact, I graduated from Torrance High School. He graduated from Torrance High School, and my dad was in the Korean War. Came back and actually made. All right, when I was real young, I'd work in the carpet store, and like I said, work ethic. From the very start, all right, this is what you got to do. And I think that's where I got the work ethic from. My mom also pushed me into the theater. And she's the one I said, well, I was thinking about in 8th grade, and the best part is this lady janitor. And I don't know if I should play a lady. And she says, oh, here. And she gives me this wig and this everything. She pushed me towards the theater. And that's what, my parents were always push. You can do this. You can do this. And always supportive. My dad came to a lot of my games in high school, but he worked a lot, so he couldn't do that. But when I was, I guess they threw out, the family atmosphere. I have a brother who's 3 years younger, and we played baseball together. I have 2 sisters. We're all 3 years apart, and we have a really close family. I guess just everything went well. Other than that, like I said, the work ethic, always doing it. I was the first, actually. My dad didn't graduate from college because he went and opened up the store. And he kind of pushed me, say, you got to go ahead and do this. So that kind of pushed me into, all right, I got to get a degree. That's what's one thing I've got to do. And luckily I did that. So
And
I
coming
guess
from,
go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry. So, coming from a generation, I hear that a lot. And you look at the kids these days, and you talk about the word work ethic,
Mm-hmm.
right? What was it about your, was it out of necessity? Was it just that was what his father taught him?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work ethic, because try to think that, I teach my kids to work hard and have that same work ethic. My dad was in construction for 40 plus years, and like, it was hard work. It wasn't, school was not really a major concern in my childhood and growing up. It was
Mm-hmm.
work hard, work hard, work
Yeah.
hard. So, talk a little bit about that, and kind of how that all stemmed, and what are some specific examples that you remember learning from your dad, that work ethic?
I think the work ethic part of it came from working with him. And then, his dad started the store, and then he took over the store. And then I worked with him, and, growing up through that. I mean, in fact, on Saturdays when I was like in high school, I would, I'll be at the store and people come pick up the carpets. And I think that work ethic, working with him, watching him, what he did, kind of instilled in me, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Now, of course, I didn't want to take over the carpet business. That didn't go over too well, but because I wanted other things to do. I wanted to look at and be trying to be an actor. But I think working with him, watching how he did every day, instilled in that, it affected me. In fact, in school, like I remember when I was in 8th grade, I had a D in math. And he said, if you don't get that up, you don't play baseball. So it's one of those things. And I think that was just kind of the hard love that helped me instill, into that work ethic. And,
Right.
and even later with my father-in-law too, working with him and his brother together. And I actually worked with my father-in-law's brother a lot more. And the way he handled, the business and the way they worked at it, all these things kind of formed me in who I am today.
I think you mentioned something too that tough love,
Yeah.
I mean, that's about as old school as you can get when you talk about, parenting, and how the biggest difference, I think, between your generation, I'm a little bit younger, but my
Mhm.
generation now, the kids, coming up, is that tough love is almost looked at
Yeah.
as a negative, as a bad thing. I mean, and
Yeah.
as a teacher, I'm sure that you've heard that. And Dane is watching. Thanks, Dane. He says that hard love is what our kids need.
Yes.
Kudos for your dad giving you that tough love. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's tough when you're a kid. It's tough when you're 10, 11, 12 years old, and you're telling you got to go dig a ditch. Or we picked up nails on the job site, and
Yeah.
it was like,
Yeah.
it wasn't easy stuff. Carry this, carry that, and but the tough love is what made us stronger,
Yeah.
and made us have that work ethic. Definitely a different time. So you played baseball, you loved baseball,
Mhm.
but it didn't really continue past high school.
Mhm.
And the acting, what prevented you from going further with theater and acting? I mean, obviously you became a plumber, but what made you give up on it for the time being?
Well, I got married. That was one thing,
Mm,
and it's hard to do without Now I'm married, and now we're gonna if we're thinking about it. Of course, we didn't have Joan for like 5 years after we got married, but it was
right.
like, okay, all right, now I got to get serious. And there was a few cases where I was taking acting lessons, and there was one instance where we knew a theater agent was in the audience, and everybody was like, oh, we got to do well, we got to do well. So we were putting on this one act play in front of them. And then later I met him, and he was kind of like, well, he's kind of a sleazeball. And I'm sitting there going, why am I so worried about, this guy? And that kind of like turned my, all right, well, maybe I'm not meant to be an actor. But later I'll find out in my life the acting part's going to help me be a teacher. And it all work out at that end. But at the start, it's kind of like, well, maybe this isn't my path.
So you saw the other side of the curtain,
Yeah,
so to speak, and
yeah,
that was just not your deal. I,
yeah,
I get it.
yeah.
So you got married, and you start growing your family with children. You've just moved to Moorpark. I mean, talk a little bit about how Moorpark, for people that live here in Moorpark and people that will watch. How is Moorpark different now than it was then, or how different was it then now? Then.
It's still got that small town atmosphere. Back then, it was, I think, even more close knit. because it was, I don't know, everybody, well, there wasn't a lot of places to eat. And a lot of people after Little League games already went to Chewy's, which was like
Right.
back then the place to go. And it was just like packed. And it was kind of like, because it was a small town atmosphere, like I said, the 118 and the 23 didn't really connect until later. And I don't know. It was just kind of like, it's still like that today, I believe. I think even though it's grown in population, but I think you just knew each other more back then than we do now. And we would kind of do the same things around town and see each other, like through the Little League and through the youth basketball. I think a lot of it was like through the youth sports, where it was a lot of people through the basketball, soccer, in base Little League back then. It was a lot of close-knit people back then.
And then, so again, as you're building your family, you had 2 young children. Talk about your boys growing up. Talk a little bit more about baseball now, as we move into you coaching, helping out, getting involved.
Okay, well, my son Joel, like I said, I coached him in Little League, and he was kind of a free spirit. He always had a smile on his face. He had a lot of friends back then, and that was through the sports area. And I think in doing that, when coaching him, and then I actually coached his friends, kind of the same way. He was a little, how shall I put this? Very independent. I'll tell you one instance where, when I was doing plumbing and he walked to the Bucks, I think he was in maybe 5th grade at the time, 4th or 5th grade. And back then it was kind of like the trend to have your pants below your, the butt. And so it was kind of like, hey man, put a belt on. You're not going to be doing that. So I was sitting there working, putting stuff in my truck, and he was walking to the bus stop, and I said, and he didn't have a belt on. He was like pulling it down. So I'm going, hey. So I walked up to him and said, get in the house, get a belt on. So he didn't even got a belt on. So I just watched him. I said, okay. So I kind of watched him go to the corner and turn the corner. So I just kind of followed him to see what happened. And I looked, and all of a sudden he's trying to pull it down. And I went, hey, so put it back on. But I'll tell you the best instant, Jason, will always in plumbing. I always tell my kids this in my class too. He wasn't doing well in class. And I said, hey, if you don't get this going, I'm going to come down to your class. So I called the teacher up, and I said, do you mind? I'm going to come and just make an appearance. And she says, well, okay, it'll be about this time. So I told my father-in-law, I had my plumbing, it was like 10 a.m. I walked into his classroom, and I just sat down and never said a word. And I sat there for an hour. And you could tell he looked at me, and this one girl was like staring at me and just going, why is this man standing here? So I watched him, and then I got up, never said a word, and walked out. So then later I got home from work, and I came in and said, hey, if you don't get it together, I'm going to go down there every single day and make sure you do it. And lo and behold, he did that. Ryan came, about 3 or 4 years after Joel, and he wanted to do everything that Joel did. And he was like, he started Little League as a 4-year-old, and he was really good. But the trouble is he never liked to get out, and I'd have to, he'd like get it, and he was out at first base. He wouldn't leave the base. I have to go up there and get him out of there. But he was like more advanced because he played with Joel. You had the older brother, younger brother syndrome, and he did that. But Ryan had he was a free spirit, and he I don't know. We're totally kind of different personalities as boys.
So now we get to the part that, this is going to be hard for me, because I read your book, and I remember that story, as a matter of fact, that you told that story in your book. Major tragedy hit your family.
I'll tell you this. I think Little League had such a part with Joel's life. When I look back on it, it's almost like it was meant to be. When he was 10 years old, he won the championship. When he was when he was 9 years old, he won the championship. When he was 10 years old, he won the championship. And he was 11-year-old, he won the championship. And it was kind of like, it wasn't just a given, but it was like the way it went, you're winning in the last inning. So what happened, and I'll kind of, for people who don't know, my son drowned in the Arroyo. He was walking home from Chaparral Middle School in Moorpark. And we don't know what happened. We had speculation of what happened. And that day changed my life forever. I was supposed to pick him up for basketball practice. Actually, our basketball team was pretty good, the youth basketball, and we're playing the travel team, and he never came home. So I went out frantically just looking for him, and it was like hell for that day, that night, and all the next day. They found him in Camarillo, and there's another thing that was kind of like, and I will talk about this too. I don't know if God had his plan in this, but he was found in Camarillo below the seminary in Camarillo, and actually somebody was driving by, heard about a radio, and found him there. So after Joel passed away, it was like for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, I just was like walking in a haze. Didn't know, had no motivation, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I did know that I wanted to help out and coach his last Little League season when he was on the team. So it was awesome for the Moorpark Little League. Every Little League kid that year wore a JDB on the side of his hat. They had a giant banner in left field. It was posted on there, "Go Joel," and with the Reds. And it was just, and actually the Reds, who Joel's team was then, goes to the championship game. And we're going to play, and this game was probably one of the best Little League games I've ever seen. It went 9 innings, and it was going back and forth, and we end up losing on a home run by Aaron Garcia, who I coached later in high school and went on and actually played in college and won the game. And I look back on that, and the kids were like disappointed because they didn't win it for me. And I said, no, this was just awesome for you guys just to do that. And I remember that, and I thought, because you know how in Moorpark Little League and others, you take the all-star team. But I don't know if I could have done it because the way, the shape I was in. And Mike Kaiserman, who I coached with at the time, he worked for the LA Times, and he was covering the Olympics too, and he didn't know he could do it or not. So it worked out perfect because Hector Garcia and Gary Sharp, who were good friends of mine, took the all-star team, and they were the perfect men to take these guys and do what they're going to do. I'll tell this story to kind of get into it. Our Little League team back then, we would always lose the Thousand Oaks because they were like a little bigger and or not bigger size-wise, but they had more population. We had some really good teams, but we'd always lose the Thousand Oaks. Well, this year, or that year, that when Joel passed away and our Little League team won, we end up losing our first game to Thousand Oaks, and we had the banner was still up. We left the banner up in left field, and I forgot. I'll back up a little bit, Jason. Is a lot of people donated money after Joel passed away, and we bought a scoreboard for the Little League, and I wanted that thing to put up so our all-star team could see that, and the people around there could see that. Well, we got it up with the help of a lot of people here in Moorpark, friends of mine, put that thing up before we played Thousand Oaks again, and we beat them. And then we came back and beat them again to keep going. Well, this Little League team just kept winning. And before they left, Hector Garcia came to me and he says, Birch, can we take the banner with us? And I said, for sure, take that banner. And that would hang up in their dugout all the way through. And so they just kept winning and winning. And this is a really good group of baseball players. And we had one young man by the name of Eric Johnson, is probably one of the best Little League players I've ever seen. He was like a man inside a 12-year-old body. He was really, really good. Anyway, we go all the way to the championship game to see if we're going to go to San Bernardino. It's actually the winner to win Southern California championship. And we beat this team the first time. They came back and beat us, and there were some really big kids from La Puente. And anyway, I knew if they kept winning, that Joel's spirit would be kept alive. And this was like driving me. So that night, it was in I think it was in La Puente or somewhere out in that area. So we spent the night at my in-laws. Mm-hmm. And I got up, and throughout this process, with Joel, missing Joel and losing Joel, I prayed, and I was kind of like saying, well, okay, where are you, God? And it really I was not hearing anything. So I was still kind of discouraged, but I got up for some reason. I got up, and I remember that night was vividly, and I said, God, you've got to be with this Little League team. I said, because of this Little League team, Joel's story will be told. And if you do that, God, you've got me. So for some reason, I said, okay, I just felt different after that. And we started the game the next day. And this is in the book too. We were down 7-0. It didn't look good. It did not look good. And my son, Ryan, was with us, and he's going, that's okay. Because my son Ryan, throughout this process too, was actually seeing Joel through dreams, through, he'd come through in his room at night and talk to him. And he was, Joel's here. And I tell you, I don't know what happened, but air here, home run there. And we end up winning that game 11-9. And we go on to San Bernardino. And sure enough, all of a sudden their son, oh, this Little League team from Moorpark's winning. And they start writing it in the newspapers, and it starts to change. Well, anyway, we go to San Bernardino, and we kept winning, and then we lose to Hawaii. And Hawaii was pretty good then too. And we have to beat Hawaii twice to win to go to Williamsport, and which was, courageous in itself. Here at Moorpark, Little League team going to Williamsport. Before we had to play this one game before we go to beat Hawaii, or play Hawaii twice, and it was a 0-0 tie going in, and it had to stop the game at midnight. And these kids were, they're exhausted. We had to go to the hotel, come back early in the morning, pick the game up. That game went 16 innings, and Blake Sharp hits a home run to win the game, who some people may know, who's going to actually went on to SC and play baseball. They went on, they beat Hawaii the first game, and they come back the second game, there's no pitching. Michael Lopez was Joel's best friend, and one of his best friends. He had a lot of friends. Michael Lopez hadn't pitched the whole All-Star tournament. Michael Lopez pitched the game of his life, and we beat them 2-1, and we ended up going to Williamsport. So throughout that, Jason, we went in. We didn't win Williamsport, but they wrote articles. The USA Today, LA Times had a guy writing all this. Everybody knew of Joel, and I knew. And they came back. The Little League team. You talk about how Moorpark has changed. Moorpark closed down when they came in. They had Cadillacs going through down LA Avenue, around Main Street to Arroyo Vista. People were outside cheering these boys as they went on. They go to Arroyo Vista, place was packed, and just cheering these guys on. At Chewy's, Jim Hill, somebody told me this with the sports with the Chewy's to watch the Little League game, and all these people there talking to him there. The whole town was kind of like just shut down because of these Little League, and it was just awesome to see. It was just awesome. And at the end, when they were announcing the boys, this one kind of broke me up. He's in the fourth player was the Angel in outfield, Joel Burchfield. So I knew after that, those boys picked me up, and I said, I got to do something. So a year passes. Well, I got so much to say, and I don't know if I kept rambling. You cut me off, please.
No. Go ahead. I'm listening. I'm enjoying it. It's just such a huge moment in history, really, not only for the town of Moorpark, but for you and for Joel's memory to live on. And we'll talk about other ways that his memory does continue to live on. But please continue.
Yeah, that this whole town, and I kid you not, it was just everybody. It was. There was flags, and this whole town came together because of those boys. It was just awesome to see. And I will say this too, because of that, Moorpark Little League has changed because of that, because now we can do it. And it instilled in the kids to play there later. We can do this. We can, because they see that banner up there and they go, oh, we can do this. And it inspired them too. But anyway, I knew I had to do something. Another thing talks about Moorpark. We wanted to do something about the arroyo. My son drowned in the arroyo, and we wanted a bridge built. When Joel first passed away, they had a petition from a lot of the junior high kids saying, we want a bridge, and we want it named Joel Burchfield Bridge. And the council said, okay, we're going to work on it. Well, throughout the Little League thing, it's now into October, and I'm going, okay, well, where's this bridge coming? Well, we're not hearing anything. So myself, a lot of my good friend, Rob Jackalone, a lot of other people, all right, we're now going to go down to City Hall each time and find out what's going on. So we find out, well, there's going to hold up here, Mr. Burchfield. We have Southern Cal Edison that owns the property, and the flood control and some of the property. But this is a process. We're going to work on it. Well, we weren't going to let this die. We were going to. So I went down to almost every one of them, but there was others where they said, okay, how's the bridge coming? They probably got tired of us. So I thought to myself and a few other ideas. I'm going, okay, well, they can't agree. We're going to start pushing the envelope. So somebody came with an idea of a cover letter to send to SoCal Edison, saying, "Hey, we as people of Moorpark want this bridge built for the children who are going to come later. We don't want this to happen again." And I actually passed it out to hundreds and even close to 1,000 residents here in Moorpark. And I said, bombard this guy or bombard the SoCal Edison saying we want this. So I called up down there and I got the secretary. And I said, my name's Dan Burchfield, and I want to know who we could send this letter to. He goes, "Oh, Mr. Burchfield, I saw your Little League team on TV." She goes, "I'm so inspired by this. This is the guy you sent it to, but don't say that I told you." I said, "Okay." So anyway, we sent it to this guy. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, they decided, well, okay, you can have the land to build the bridge over there.
Yeah.
And that, again, I'm thinking to myself, okay, thanks, Joel. You did that, and we got that done.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. And that bridge still stands today. And I can't tell you, I do a lot of walking, which we'll get into a little later, and I walk over that bridge when I'm done with all my walks. And actually in my history class, I have a day where I tell a lot of the kids the history around Moorpark, what happened. And I tell them about the history of that bridge. A lot of them don't even know about it.
Yeah, after reading your book, I had known about it, but I intentionally went to the bridge, and having never met your son, and really not having a strong relationship with you, I still felt emotional, as I said, because that's going to be there forever. Yeah. So what's amazing is that memory and that moment in time where Moorpark came together, and there's been a lot of other things like you said, Moorpark is a small town, small, tight knit community where we really do, especially going through COVID. There was a lot of coming together during this time. I just want to ask you one question after hearing the story and remembering some of your words from the book. What was it though? Obviously after the games and everything, kind of the excitement of that passed by. What did it feel like? How did you get through that emotionally, psychologically? What got you motivated, inspired again? Because here you are now, a teacher who, the kids love you, right? I'm so impressed by the fact that you do walk-up songs and music when you do these. I love that stuff. I think it's so cool. But because it had to be tough. It had to be tough. There's no doubt about it. So how did you get through that?
I'll tell you, Jason, it was the Little League team. And watching them go through that and propping Joel up, that propped me up and said, okay, you have to do something. There was an instance that happened a year after Joel passed away. We did kind of like a remembrance, actually, at Holy Cross Church. And I didn't belong to any church. My good friends, Mike and Ronnie Husband, went to Holy Cross Church, and they said, okay, we got the church. So we did a service, and a lot of kids came up and talked about Joel. And I still couldn't talk about it. But anyway, we had a little candle and a pie plate, and had Joel's number on it. And we lit the candle, and it was getting close to dusk. I walked down the center of Holy Cross Church. I took a left. I don't know where I was. I was just deep in thought. I walked over and kind of looked over, Moorpark. And it was kind of cool because it was getting dusk and you see it lit a little bit. And going back to that prayer, I said, what am I going to do? What I'm going to do? And I turned and I looked, and over 100 kids were kind of like, and looking at me like for guidance. And I just went, okay, I got to coach, and I got to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. And that's what really motivated me to, and when I went through the whole becoming a teacher, I'm a plumber. I haven't been in school for like close to 20 years. And to do that, and it was always that Little League team and watching those kids Joel's age inspire me to kind of pull me up and got me going through that whole thing.
And so from there, what was you decided to go back to school 20 years later, go back to school, become a teacher. Those kids are looking to you for guidance and that inspiration. And so now you're going back to school, and that wasn't easy.
No.
Right. Because I can remember that you took a test several times, and it was almost on the last one where you said, this is either I'm either going to make it or I'm
Yeah.
done. So talk about going to school and getting
Yeah.
all that done.
Well, one good thing is my wife had a good paying job. So that was one thing that kind of kept us going, because I was working. I kind of cut off being a plumber, and I especially doing my student teaching to get that done. And I went to Cal Lu. I kind of work part-time. And so anyway, I had to, since I got my degree in theater arts and I wanted to teach history, I had to pass a praxis test. And the first time I did it, the practice tests back then, I don't even know if they have it anymore, but you answer these questions and then people would read it and see. Well, anyway, I missed it by like 3 points the first time. And then I heard later, they said, oh, we changed it to make it higher. So I would have passed in the past, but I didn't. So anyway, I said, okay, I'm going to work again. I practiced my essay writing. I did this and that. So I took it again. And this time I missed it by 5 points. So I'm sitting there going, I don't know if this is meant to be. Maybe it's just I'm conjuring this up. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be a teacher. So anyway, I worked at it. And I remember, because we took the test at El Camino Real High School, and I had to drive down to past Calabasas. And I said, all right, this time I got to find this out. So Joel's actually buried in Westlake. And before I went to take the test, I went and had a long, hard talk with Joel. And so I got in there. I took the test, but I felt good. But I felt good the other 2 times, so I wasn't really sure. And so what happened was, usually with 3 weeks, you'd get the letter. And this, for some reason, I didn't get it. That's either a good sign or a bad sign. So I finally got the letter, and this is a true story. I go, all right, I got to find out if I'm meant to be a teacher. I got in my car. I drove to the bridge. I actually got on the bridge. I opened the envelope, and it said, "You passed." And as soon as I looked at me, a little kid rode his bike over the bridge, and I said, "All right, here we go." But it didn't really start smooth. I mean, it was like I went to Moorpark High School, and they said, "Nope, sorry, we don't need you." So I went, well, okay, maybe I'll go to a Simi School District or the Caneo School District. Luckily, there was an opening at Chaparral Middle School that somebody hurt their back, and I was teaching history for 2 years. My first year here, you have to realize computers were coming in. I knew nothing about computers. I was against computers. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 58 years old. I was one of those old curmudgeon guys that kind of lived, in the woods and saying, hey, I keep telling the kids when I get out of teaching, I'm going to just throw my cell phone away and just live in the woods and feed squirrels. So I'm going, my first year, it was a little harder than it looks, especially having 7th and 8th graders. And I remember I was going, I'm getting chewed up here. And so it was tough. And I went to one of the veteran teachers, and I came and said, will you sit in my class and see what I'm doing here? And she comes up and puts her hand after watching the class. And she's, Burchfield, you have every kid that fools around in this one class. And I went, okay, well, either this is going to help me or not. The next year, I love my time with Chaparral. My younger son, Ryan, was an 8th grader. He left, and I got to be around with him. The next year, I got a pink slip saying, all right, Burchfield, sorry, you're the low man of the totem pole. We don't want to let you leave. I was taught drama too. They gave me that like a week before, and that was kind of inspiring. And so I said, well, okay, I don't know what to do. And it went down to like 2 weeks before school that they called me up, say, somebody left. We want you to teach at Moorpark High School. And I've been teaching there. Well, this coming up next year will be my 20th year teaching in the Moorpark School District. But it was like touch and go there for a while. And through the years, I've learned many, many things. And I'll tell you this, I became a teacher to make a difference in kids' lives. But you say, how did I get through a lot of that? I believe that teaching them I missed that with Joel growing up. Teaching them, they helped me so much. Just being involved in those kids' lives turned me around. Mm-hmm. And I don't like the rest, I guess, is history. I got to teach my son in my history class. He didn't want that at the start, but all his friends talked him into it. And I got to coach my son on the JV level, and we had a blast doing that. And I was assistant coach as a varsity level. and watching him grow throughout high school was probably the most memorable thing in my life. And just through coaching baseball, teaching kids, I have grown so much. And I still, I mean, losing a child, you never get over that. You never do. But it's transformed me, I guess, is the way to look at it. It's always, you'll always have that ache in your heart, but it transformed me being a teacher into the person that I am today. That kind of helps me.
Yeah, and I can tell you, and I've commented several times. Just I follow you on Facebook a lot and hear what you have to say. And when I was in high school, I had a teacher who I hope to be able to interview him at some point. Randy Porter. He was my woodshop teacher, Newbury Park High School. I don't know if you know him. He
No.
was he was just one of those teachers that if it wasn't for him, I probably would have never graduated high school because I hated school. He made me like school. He would plant these little seeds in me that inspired me, that keep going. Like he just kind of made me want to get to school,
Mm-hmm.
And I see that through you and with you with some of the students. I know for a fact that you have touched many students in that very same way. And I think that everybody needs a teacher like that. And I look at it too, and I know that sometimes being I'm just going to say the cool teacher, right? I mean, like that might be tough with some of the other teachers too, right? I mean, there's
Well, I
you
don't
know,
think so. That's like we're talking behind my back now.
no, but you know how there's just kind of, it's like good cop, bad cop. Mom,
Yeah.
my mom or dad play good cop, bad cop,
Yeah.
and sometimes that. But I think that changes someone's life. I think that changes kids' lives and how they feel about school because, there's a lot of kids out there, especially over this last year with COVID. I appreciate the fact that you've poked and prodded my son a couple times because I'm like, dude, get up and go to the classroom, get off of Zoom. And like you talk about hating computers, I couldn't
Yep.
hate it more. If it wasn't for computers, though, we wouldn't be having this interview, and
That is
I wouldn't
true. That
have
is true.
interviewed about 40 other people. So it's got its pros and cons. But anyway, my whole point is just going back to where it really takes unique individuals to touch people in their life with just that little bit of inspiration, because it's just a little spark
Yes.
that really changes it, right?
Yes.
So now, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's a tough question. I mean, do you like coaching more than theater? Do you like theater more than coaching baseball, or is it kind of two separate things?
You like I said, I said you look back in your life, and here I was like an actor, and good job, James. Even though I yelled at James once too.
Don't worry, I took his belt away. He knows it. He's thinking about it right now.
I got to we had a longtime theater teacher, Steve Robertson was there for a long time, and he retired. And they came to me and say, "All right, you're gonna direct a play." I acted, and I'm going, "Okay, I've never directed a play." And I knew I was saying I'm going to do It's a Wonderful Life because I love that movie, and I found the play. I said I'm going to do that. So, here I was going to be an actor, and now I'm teaching theater. And I wanted to be a baseball player, and I got to coach baseball. When I was young, I would actually at practice, I would announce the games when we did it, because I still do that when we're doing practice. And I got to be a football announcer and a basketball announcer. So I'm kind of looking at it. I said, Burchfield, you've achieved what you wanted to do that whole time in this one aspect of being a teacher. And I always kind of look back on that. But you asked the questions between theater, it was different. In fact, I wanted to be a head coach, and then I went through and saw what some of the head coaches have to go through. And I went, nah, I think I'll just be an assistant coach. I don't have to go through all the tough stuff. And but the theaters, you get really close to the kids. So you do the same thing with sports too. But you reach more kids in the classroom, I think, different types of kids. The kids, they really want to be in the baseball field, so they're motivated. The theater kids, they really want to be there, so they're motivated. Some guys, you just got to try to motivate the kids in the classroom. And that, to me, is kind of like over the years, has been kind of, I want to do this. But I did theater for close to 9 years and directed the fall play for 9 years. Had a blast. I mean, there was a group of kids that I was with for like 3 years. that I was very close to, and we did all the plays together, and they hung out in my room all the time, and it was just awesome. And watching them go through, what they're doing with their lives now, graduating college, in the military, married, went through having kids now, and they keep in touch with me, and that's another thing that kind of soothes my soul. But yeah, it's hard to describe both. I did do this. I started, how Alfred Hitchcock movies where he puts himself in the movie. I said, okay, I'm going to just make a walk-on. And I did walk-ons in all my plays. I would just like at the era that I did It's One of Life the first time. Then I said, I'm going to end on that because now I'm a better director. I know what I'm doing now. I came in, at the very end when George Bailey's getting all the money and they're all saying, and I came in a white suit like an angel saying, I've been watching you, George. So I kind of did that thing. So I would put that in there too. But yeah, I guess it's different. I guess the way you would affect the kids between theater and sports. But I can't describe. You can touch both ways, and to me, it's been awesome, the experience.
So where was the inspiration for doing walk-up music and having dressing up for certain history? I mean, where did that all start? How did
the theater got in me saying, okay, and in high school, I had a history teacher who was the football coach, and we'd walk in there and he'd have everything written on the chalkboard, and they had chalkboards back then. And all right, copy down there, look it up in the book and answer the question. Quiz on Friday. And that was it. I mean, once in a while you talk, but not a lot. So I knew coming in, and especially that first year where those kids were chewing me up, I said, I got to do something. I got to start changing this up. So like I said, I knew nothing about computers, and a friend of mine said, hey, I'll show you how to do a PowerPoint. So, okay. So I did the PowerPoint. And then when I started teaching, I'm sitting there talking, and I'm watching the kids. I'm going, well, some of these kids not too involved. I said, all right, I got to change some things. So then I started adding music to the PowerPoint. Then I started adding action figures into the PowerPoint. So then our baseball teams all wanted these walk-up songs. I said, well, what the heck? I'll have my own teacher walk-up song. So I started this. I haven't done it yet, but I was going, okay, what do you think of this song? What do you think of this? I had a Monday Night Football theme. I had a Are You Ready for This theme. So certain things. What do you think of this good walk-up song? And so I'm just kind of all right, hey, you guys say teachers are boring sometimes. Well, sometimes you students are boring. So now if you want the teacher to be in print, I want to be clapped when I come in. So I walked in, I just kind of spice it up. It was kind of involvement of just kind of trying to, all right, how can I make this more fun? How can I make this more interesting? And things like that. Believe me, this last year was the hardest because I'm more of a hands-on in the classroom, and now I can't do that, and now I'm just a little square, and it was tough.
But what a great way to engage the students and get and really get their attention, because that's kind of hard to ignore, right? Because the thing is, you're either going to cheer it or boo it, and I'm sure that you don't care. Cheer me or boo me. You're paying attention to me,
so right. You're watching it. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
No
now
doubt.
You have one of the most unique voices over the loudspeaker. I think I probably recognized your voice before I ever knew who you are from the football games. And so you announce football, basketball, you've done some announcing. You've got the perfect voice for it. Everybody talks about the Burchfield voice. Talk about that, how you got involved. I mean, what was did that someone just ask you one time you want to do it, or did you ask to do it?
I asked to do it. When I was teaching Chaparral, I don't know who I was talking to, but they needed somebody to announce the freshman games. And I did that. I'll back it up. When I was in third grade, I had a speech impediment, and I took these speech classes, and it kind of oh, okay, this helped me. And I kind of was conscious of that. And then my dad's got a booming voice. My brother sounds just exactly like me. We got a booming voice at the dinner table. That's how we get, we talk back and forth to get that done. So it's always been that. In college, I had to take diction and voice classes for the acting. And that kind of helped. But I get the distinctness of it just from my dad. My dad's got a really deep voice too, and I got that from him. But yeah, I pushed myself. Hey, I'll do the football games, and so I did the freshman games, and then I did the freshman and the JV games. And then when Steve Robertson retired. He was doing the varsity games. They said, well, Burchfield, you want to do this? And I said, sure. I did that. So that's when I came up with the yellow laundry, which people always go, where you ever come up with that? And I don't know where I heard that from somebody, because it was the same. It was one of the football games where there was penalty flag after penalty flag after penalty flag. I went, oh my gosh. And you go, penalty flag, and again. So I was I didn't want to sound like, monotonous. So I got to come up with different names. So then I came up with the yellow laundry on the field, and everybody liked it. Okay, well, let's keep doing that. So
that's awesome.
That's how that came about. But yeah, another thing, I would like, some of the football players would come up to me, and I'd have them in my class, and I'd have nicknames for some of the kids. And then they're coming up to me, here, Birch, this is my nickname. I said, no, I got to give you a nickname. You just can't give me nicknames. So that was happening too. Some of them were pretty good, but some of them like, okay, we're going to have to come up with that. But I'll tell you one instance it was really neat. I had 2 German exchange students, and they're in my class. And all of a sudden they wore this football jersey. And I said, oh, you in the football team? He goes, yeah, we don't play much. I said, oh, really? He goes, yeah. I said, well, I call the JV games, and I don't even see you on my roster. He goes, oh, really? So I'm going, hey, these guys aren't on the roster. This is like last 2 or 3 games left in the season. And I went, so I got their numbers. I found out who they were. And we were playing Calabasas, the JV team was, and they were winning like 35-0. And they're putting it on them. And they still was like 3 minutes left in the game, and they still haven't gotten a game. So I probably got in trouble for this, but I kind of said, and now we're waiting for the German missiles to come into the game, and everybody's going, German missiles. So they're doing this. So all of a sudden, a minute left in the game, they got into the game, and I don't even think they made a tackle. I think they got one of the kid ran up, but they ran after the game. He ran into the booth, Burchfield, and I was announcing their names and just this and that. I made such a big deal out of this, just them. That is the most exciting thing in my entire life that you did. And that just hit me right after that.
That's awesome. I mean, I got goosebumps hearing you say that, because that those kids are going to remember that for the rest of their life, right? Yes. I mean, that's just such a great moment in time for them to be recognized. And who does that? Like, how many teachers actually do that? I have a lot of respect for teachers. I've been teaching for, almost 30 years. And, sometimes people are phoning it in, they're just not really giving their heart and soul. They started with the passion, and then it becomes kind of more of a grind. But I think what you've done successfully is you have found a way to continue to ignite that passion, and be engaged and be involved, because it's very easy, especially in the last year with COVID, to get burnout and just, running out of ideas.
After this year, I was even telling my wife, I said, maybe I should just hang them up after this year, because it was tough. I mean, because I'm not computer savvy, and some of these other teachers had like escape rooms and things like that, and I'm going, man, I don't have a clue. I'm just going to have to just do my PowerPoints and try to. I mean, it's a little different than having it in the room instead of looking at the box. But I always knew, Jason, I said, listen, if I get tired of this, and I saw some teachers that got burned out, if I get like that, I'm just going to retire. I'm just not going to do it anymore. But I think this was my mission, and I just kept going. And I just said, hey, I'm going to make a difference in these kids' lives. And it was because of Joel and why I wanted to do this, and made it my passion in life and my purpose in life. And I look back and seen what's happened and how it's helped me. But I think that's what's motivated me every year to do
good
that.
For you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, hey, we got about 2-3 minutes left, and I just want to give you a moment to talk about your memorial fund, because you've got a Facebook page for it. You're putting a lot of inspirational messages out there. So just kind of talk about that program, that project a little bit more, and we'll wrap up from there.
Sure. Since about 20 plus years, we've been giving out the Joel Burchfield Memorial Scholarship. And we've been doing that, and it's kind of grown over the years. I started walking about, 6 years ago, close to 7 years ago, be this year. And I walked to get funds for the Joel Scholarship, because it was getting down to like $400 left in the funds, and we didn't have enough. So I do these walks. I walk from Carpinteria to San Pedro, and people just donated for the Joel Fund. And one year, a friend of mine had a writer from the LA Times walk with me, and they did an article in the LA Times about it, and people were sending me money that I didn't even knew. I mean, they were just like, oh, I lost my son, I lost my daughter. This is so awesome. This is so awesome.
Hmm.
So it's grown over the years. In fact, enough so one of my past students is doing the website for me, and and she's the one that set me up with a Facebook page because I was sitting there going, okay, how do we do this? Because I don't know what I'm doing. And so it's grown, and it's grown up to like $20,000, and now it's a 501c nonprofit. We've gotten it up to that because of these walks. And if anybody wanted to donate to the cause, you go to the www.joelburchfield.org. It's got its own website, and I've done some blogs on there and done that. I'm thinking too, Jason, I might even expand it, and because if it grows a little bit more, and I want to not only give out scholarships, but I'm thinking about this because there's an instance I want to do, make a Joel Burchfield Angels in the Outfields doing certain things for people in Moorpark and helping out them. So certain things that just to kind of like, Joel Burchfield Angels in the Outfield are going to help you do this and help you do that. So I'm thinking of expanding that. My walk I'm going to do this year. July 25th, I'm going to start. I walked from Carpinteria to Ventura to Newbury Park to Malibu to Santa Monica to Redondo Beach to Torrance, and then I end up in San Pedro. And I've had people walk with me, past students walk with me. I think you should come walk with me like a little bit. And through that, and I'll put this on Facebook Live too when I do it so that people will know. You can like donate and we'll get the funds going. And believe me, the kids throughout the years and have won the Joel Burchfield Scholarship. I'll just tell you one because I know you got a couple of minutes. One instance where he became a police officer in Santa Barbara, and he was telling me how tough it was. And he walked with me in one of the instances too. He walked like 18 miles with me. And he said, I knew you instilled this, winning this scholarship. And when things are, I was going to quit to become, because it was getting tough in the training for to become a police officer. And I saw that picture because we gave out a picture of Joel with that. And he said, that picture spoke to me. He said, I got to keep up with this. So when he did that, and I'm hearing this, I'm going, wow. And now he's doing well. He's married. He's a police officer in Santa Barbara and doing awesome. So it does some good. We're making a difference.
Well, like I said, before, the legacy and the memory of Joel lives on through that scholarship fund, and you're doing amazing things with it. I was happy to see. I believe this year, was it 5 people received?
Yeah, 4. We had 4. Last year we had 5.
Sorry.
This year we had 4.
Mm-hmm.
And we gave out $1,000 a piece to the kids, and there was $4,000. I had 5 before that. So now I want to give out more money. Before that, I was only giving out like, when we first started, it was like 250 because we didn't have any money in there. And now it's just awesome to give out more money. And like I said, we keep in touch with them and what they're doing, and some we don't. Some get their own lives and move on. But it's awesome just to see them go through this, and that's what carries me on, and that's why I do what I do.
Well, I think that's just an amazing way to continue to serve our community and to give back and to do good things. I happen to know all 4 of the scholarship winners, and I think one of their grandpas is on today, right, Dane? Shelby won, and one of our students, Jacob Strassman, who's a black belt of mine, Raylene Perez family, and the 4th one, I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, Robbie Ayers, he was our catcher on our baseball team.
There you go. Yep. So, I mean, just, great kids and a great recognition from you. So, thank you for doing that. And thank you for being that inspiration for the kids and in at the high school. Thanks for sharing your story with us today. I think everybody really enjoyed it. And I'm happy that we'll be able to keep this up and let people view this for many years to come. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And we will be happy.
Yeah, keep doing this, Jason. It's kind of it's fun to see how and especially nowadays, especially with the COVID thing, we need more motivation, no doubt about it.
Well, I hope that it is doing just that. I hope that people do enjoy watching these videos. I know that I do.
Yeah.
Talking with people like yourself, and yeah, absolutely. Dane was throwing it out there. We may be able to get a team from our school. I would be honored to walk with you. I know I asked you this several months ago. Even it was right after I read your book. I said I not only am I going to meet with you, but I'm going to walk with you. So I 100% would love to do it. So thank you for asking.
I'll let you know.
Very good. All
All right.
right, guys. Well, that's it for today. Thank you all for commenting and watching and sharing. And we'll continue to watch Mr. Burchfield do great things at the high school and great things in our community. So once again, thank you so much, sir. I hope everybody has a great day, and hopefully this has motivated and inspired you for your Monday. So have a great week.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. All right, we're gonna just close it out. Throw on that video, but please share this
I
and.
will.
We'll have a great week. Take
All
care.
right. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Dan.
All right.